All right, you're welcome back. Nigeria carries the second highest burden of tuberculosis in Africa and the 7th globally.
Now, according to World Health Organization, no less than 18 Nigerians die of tuberculosis every hour. That's a very, very disturbing one. And 432 Nigerians die from this treatable and curable disease daily.
Nigeria is detecting only about 24% of these estimated TB cases annually. Now, the United Nations and the World Health Organization have set a target for ending the global TB epidemic by 2030. Will Nigeria or can Nigeria meet this target? That's a question we'll be addressing to our guest, medical doctor Tuyi Mebawodu. Good morning. It's always good to see you.
Good morning.
You know, I'm looking forward to a day when we invite you here. We're actually talking about breakthroughs in the health sector in Nigeria, but that seems to be a mirage. TB is improving in other parts of the world, but Nigeria is lagging behind. Of every 100,000 people in Nigeria, you have a huge chunk of that actually suffering from tuberculosis. Most undetected, most untreated.
Yes, exactly. As much as 340 or more people for every 100,000 are cases of tuberculosis in Nigeria. Worldwide, as much as more than 2 billion people, actually have contracted tuberculosis. And
2 billion?
2 billion.
Or out of 7 billion people?
Yes, as much as one-third. And then here we are, 9 million active cases. 90% of those 9 million active cases, of course, where where it's going to be, mainly in those countries, about 14 countries, having 64% of those cases. And Nigeria happens to be number 7 in the world and number 2 in Africa. Always these interesting statistics. Of course, like you already pointed out, every hour, before we finish now, if we've spent an hour, we must have lost a minimum of 18 people to a disease that is curable and preventable. So, well, we've seen quite a move, but it seems that the move between 2010 and now has not been quite encouraging. Initially, we set up a standard to really be able to have tuberculosis cases in 2020. It's not going to happen again, so we're going to move it further to 2030. But having said this, we look at what are actually the driving forces that is actually leading to these numbers in tuberculosis.
Yes.
One of the driving forces is that of HIV/AIDS. HIV and tuberculosis have this unholy alliance. For every 10 people with HIV, 4 of them will actually die of tuberculosis. So that's certain. So combination of tuberculosis and HIV is one of the things at the bottom of the epidemics. Again, of course, we know we have poor financing in terms of TB cases. You look at it, there's a huge gap in finances, as much as 360 million gaps. And we're looking at the donor agencies. They put in about 40%. Nigeria puts in about 9%. We're having about as much as 60-something% gap, huge gap in funding of tuberculosis. The question is that when are we going to actually get this funding right? And we also see the fact that despite all the things we've been doing every day, the malnutrition is still there that is knocking down the immune of the people. We see a lot of even mismanagement of those little funds that comes to Nigeria by the agency, that network that's supposed to run the tuberculosis. And then we see poor integration. Everything is run like a silo. Tuberculosis program, HIV program, malnutrition program. And recently, you agree with me that Nigeria is rated as the country with the highest number of malnourished people. Yeah. Now, the key thing is that there are missing 75% that are going undiagnosed, because TB is very contagious, very, very contagious. It's a droplet infection. A person, in a year, a person with active tuberculosis will infect minimum of 10 to 15 people in every year. So if you have 300,000 active cases of tuberculosis in Nigeria, what you mean that just multiply that by 15, and then multiply that again by 15. So it's an exponential increase. So for us, a disease that is easily preventable and easily curable is causing a lot of havoc to the nation, especially the people in the reproductive age.
Let's even understand the basics. For instance, what really causes tuberculosis? The name is quite very popular. Tuberculosis is a star in its own respect. You know, it's popular. But the point there is, what causes it? So we really know the everyday things to prevent.
What to look out for?
Yeah, it's caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterial tuberculosis, isolated sometimes by in the 18th century by Koch. So what happened is that the major place of affectation is the lungs. The bacteria enters the lung. First of all, it enters and stays silent if you have sufficient immune system. But when the immune system is broken, it enters the lung and causes consumption in terms of destroying the lung structure. It can spread to any other structure. But the key one that we're concerned about is the pulmonary tuberculosis. What are the factors that actually assure the increase of tuberculosis? Well, one, we have the host factor. Now, if the immune system is low, if someone is living in an overcrowded area, if there is no sufficient nutritional support, then if the diagnosis is not there, then the chances of tuberculosis being spread is higher. So we see overcrowding as a factor there in the environment. We also see that the virulence of the organism as a factor, because even now we are seeing a lot of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis spreading all over the place, and that is even worse than whatever you can think of. If you have tuberculosis getting resistant to the drugs, and then this resistance is being transferred to as many as 15 people in a year, and in this large population, malnourished, overcrowded population, then it becomes a big
So when
issue.
a person contacts the resistant strain, it makes it even worse for that, for that person, right?
It is worse for the person.
But what exactly is, I'll let you address that, but what is the reason for this drug resistant?
Again, you know there's mutation in this germ. Some of them mutate. And then secondly, improper treatment. These are core issues, because you need to treat tuberculosis for a minimum of 6 months. And then when somebody treats for 2 months and feels that I'm okay, the strain of the bacteria, the germ you are going to get is going to be you're going to be stronger and resistant to some of your drug. Then the issue of the pharmacovigilance in terms of the quality of drug you are even applying to the person becomes important. If you apply substandard drug, the germ will develop resistance. And then the other aspect of it is that people, out of ignorance and all that stuff, they couldn't diagnose it properly. Before they get it, and then it becomes a big issue. So this is how we get resistant. And then the other key issue is that children are disproportionately affected in the sense that
Children? Yes,
because if you see any child with tuberculosis, he must have gotten it from an adult, obviously, clearly. So, and then the classical manifestation of fever, night sweat, cough, weight loss may not be that apparent in those children. They may not show those classical manifestations. Okay. Sometimes the TB can even spread to the other part of the body, into the abdomen. In that case, you just see the abdomen getting swollen, into the bones, and interestingly, any part of the body can be affected. But the core issue is this: why should a disease that is preventable and curable be causing this extent of harm? Exactly. So what are we doing? Well, again...
Or what are we not doing?
Or what are we not doing? Again, we've seen, first of all, funds being trying to be mobilized into the TB, National TB and Leprosy Control Program. We see a kind of synergy, trying to, the HIV program and the TB program and the STD program trying to work together. We've seen that the government has also tried to involve private settings, because the way government behaves in this part of the world is that they see people that are not in government as somebody not to be touched in a way. So we've seen them trying to involve private medical practitioners. They are involving private laboratories. They are involving private pharmacy to be able to pick those missing cases of tuberculosis. If those ones are not picked, as much as 75% of those cases are not picked. If they're not picked, then we're not going anywhere. Those people will be there hiding and then giving it to 15 people Every blessed year.
Earlier this year, to commemorate the World Tuberculosis Day, the federal government launched a pediatric anti-TB formulation for children. Talk to us about that. How effective has that been? Again,
before you administer anti-TB to children, you must first of all diagnose TB in children. Okay. The key question is that diagnosing TB in children is actually tough. It's not that easy. Oh. So again, we all agree that adults give TB to children. So for us, we need to really
get the root of it.
To those adult people, the condition that push TB in those children, we need to, in the adults, we need to actually deal with those. If we don't deal with that consistently, it will be simmering in the adult population, they'll be giving it to the children, and we'll also be at the forefront of bad statistics.
So are you saying that the 6,000 health facilities where DOTS is provided in Nigeria
is inadequate? You see, you cannot, wait, okay, look at the diagnostic system now. Now, we have what they call gene experts. It's a special machine used to diagnose TB and the multi-drug resistant. We have many, 310 locations all over Nigeria for close to 200 million people. What are you going to do with 310? And then besides, procuring the machine, maintaining the machine is very expensive. Sometimes I wonder, what is our education doing to us? Why is it so difficult for, a Nigerian to be able to, even a company in Nigeria to be able to assemble something similar to that? So what level of education are we really having? Is it just to come and cram the number of moons in the sky? So honestly,
it's not functional.
Yes, so honestly, and then even most of these drugs have to flow in from other countries. We can't manufacture drugs. We can't even manufacture straight diagnosis. We can't even spread the diagnosis acumen to every part.
And the research institutes that should handle these sometimes are not funded properly.
And then the government must be able to synergize with everybody concerned. You should not see anybody as opposing to you. Both local, both within the government, the settings of the local setting, and even the main hospitals.
And unfortunately, the Global Fund has accused some CSO officials of stealing money meant for
as much as millions of naira.
Very sad situation. Dr. Tuyi Mebawodu, medical doctor, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Let's just hope it improves, really.
We
All right,
look forward to improvement.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back at the top of the hour, Nifemi will be here for the news update, and right after that, more discussions. Stay with us.